Hey there, it's Maggie from Knitting in the Park here. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to do a garter tab cast on. I use this skill in quite a few of my shawls, from the cozy cabin to the dashing and fashing, so this is a video that I've been wanting to create for a while now. I just haven't had the time to get around to it. So let's break down the name first. Garter tab cast on. Garter means you're working in garter stitch, so knitting back and forth in a certain number of rows. Tab, that working in garter stitch forms a tab, which you can see here. So I have, oops, let me show you here, 7 rows in garter stitch right here. See how it's like a short little tab, right? You cast on 3 stitches. And I'm going to show you this for the cozy cabin in general. So if you're using this for another video, simply just adjust the number of stitches or number of rows per the pattern instructions. This is a really popular technique for top-down shawls that a lot of different patterns will use. So if you're not using one of my patterns, still a great video, please feel free to follow along. So you're going to cast on the number of stitches. In this case, for the cozy cabin, it's 3. And you're going to knit 6 rows in garter tab. So I've already done that to speed this up. So once you knit your 6 rows, you're going to work the setup row for the rest of the shawl. So that includes knitting the 7th row, so knit those 3 stitches one more time. And then we're going to, so the instructions, let's see, so you've knit your 7th row here. The instructions say to turn the work 90 degrees. Don't panic, this is all that it means. Ready? You take it and you turn it. So your knitting needle is now sticking up in the air, and the garter tab is kind of like a flag flying off of it. What we're going to do now is pick up a stitch in each of the garter rows. So at the end of each garter row, we're going to find, some people call it the purl stitch of the garter row, but there's a single stitch here that we're going to pick up in each one of these rows, and we're going to knit it. So by the time we're done with this short step, we'll have 3 more stitches. So it's 6 stitches total. Then we're going to turn it 90 degrees again. And then we're going to pick up and knit 3 stitches along the bottom. So at the end of this step, the end of this row, we'll have 9 stitches with which to start our shawl pattern. So I'm going to flip the camera around here and show you how to do this. Okay, so we've knit 6 rows, and then starting the 7th row here, I've knit my 3 stitches to start this. Now, the instructions in the garter tab tell you to rotate the work 90 degrees. That simply means to rotate it so that this edge of your tab is on top. So it kind of looks like a little flag here. Now, I'm going to use my knitting needle to kind of try to highlight each of the 3 garter rows. So we have 1, 2, and 3. What we're going to do in this tab is pick up a stitch at the edge of each of these garter rows. And then eventually, once we do that, we're going to turn it again and then pick up a stitch at the bottom. 3 of them. Again, so we'll have 9 stitches total. So let's see if you can see this here. So in this garter ridge, we knit 2 rows to form this one ridge. Here's one, and here's the stitch from the other, right? We're going to go on the bottom row, and you'll pick, so what you do here is you'll work your, try not to go out of focus here, use your needle and work it so that you pick up that stitch there, trying to make sure that you only pick up one piece or one strand of yarn. Wrap your yarn around and you're going to knit that. So that's 1 stitch that we've picked up and knit now. For some people though, an easier way is to take your other needle here, right? Because it's not attached to your other stitches here, it's a little bit more malleable, like easier to work with that. So you can work to coax. Again, sometimes it's going to take a little bit of work to get your needle through that strand of yarn. So let's show again here. So we have the first half of this garter ridge, and the second half of this garter ridge will go on the first. I guess you could do the second, it doesn't really matter, but if you're a stickler for quote unquote the right way on how to do things. All right, so I've got my needle in. Now what I can do is just knit this, and it's a little bit easier to work there if my needle wasn't so warped. Now we have this last garter ridge row here. I'm going to pick up the bottom stitch and knit that. All right, so now we turn the work again. And at the bottom, let's try and get this in focus here. You'll see 1, 2, 3 stitches from your cast on edge. So we're going to pick up and knit those 2. Again, a lot of people use this right hand needle and work it in there. I think it gets a little bit tough. So I take my left hand or my free needle and work. Again, it might need some coaxing. The left needle in there. Apparently my cast on edge was pretty tight here because I was speeding this up, but that's 1. Okay. And then we're going to get the second. And you want to get the whole piece of yarn if possible. Just the single piece though, not multiple strands of yarn. And we're going to knit that. And then this last stitch here, use the left hand needle, pull that through and knit that. So we've gone from 3 stitches, which are, so you can still see here, to 9. So 3 sections of 3. Now as you work your shawl, you'll see that this becomes a nice straight garter section. It's a great technique to learn to do the top of a shawl. So that is the brief tutorial from Knitting in the Park on how to do the Garter Tab Cast On.